Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Common Law Court of Wales. We have a very serious broadcast this evening. We'll be focusing on the corruption within the council and the mining companies within Anglesey. We have Craig Winter, John Andrews and Gordon Bowden on to explain this, to let us know how they got in touch with Gordon and exactly what circumstances drove them to that. John, you was telling us before the show started, mate, you had bailiff troubles, is that correct?
Yeah, this is what got me involved in all of this, you know.
Okay.
Well, my wife called me up. I was in work about 100 miles away, close to Rilla, actually. But she called me up crying on the phone. The bailiffs were there. So I shot home straight away and got the bailiffs out. But they were trying to steal the car, trying to take the car away, trying to take the furniture away. Unless I paid them 1,800 quid. So this was for a parking ticket. So anyway, I had to go to the bank, come back and give them 1,800 quid. So when the bailiffs were going, they were flashing the money in my face and smiling. It was a woman from Rossendale.
Right.
With blonde hair and a bit of a mouthy bit she was, to be honest with you. And that's when it hit me. I thought, you know, that's not right what they're doing, smiling and flashing the money, going driving away. Do you know what I mean?
A lot of our listeners will be very familiar with this. I mean, these bailiff companies, they smug buggers just to, you know, well, so yes, I understand completely how these people can really irritate you, but
yeah.
Whereas usually people will just be upset and go back into the living room and say, oh well, that's that. This really motivated you, John, did it?
Oh, I just wanted to learn bits of the law that was towards bailiffs. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to stop these bailiffs coming.
Indeed.
In their tracks. Do you know what I mean? So I went online, as you do, and started searching, and I came across Anglesey Mining PLC.
Okay.
On Pandora's Box. I started reading it, and I thought, Jesus Christ, what nuclear waste in Anglesey. So anyway, cut a long story short again, I got in touch with Gordon through Peter Eyre. He gave me his email, and then we started communicating. I think we're going back almost 12 months now, but at least 10 months back.
Yeah, that's right. So from a chance, you know, encounter with a couple of smug bailiffs, you went on the money trail, so to speak, and you come across this firm called Anglesey Mining.
No. Yes, through Pandora's Box, where.
Right. Just for the listeners, can you explain what Pandora's Box is?
Pandora's Box it's a website where.
Shall I explain that?
Yes, you explain it.
Yeah. What it was back in 2009. I was trying to get some of the information out on fake oil, gas and mining companies. And I was put in touch with a guy called Peter Eyre, who was living in Derby. And Peter Eyre was supposedly an ex-naval intelligence officer, or with a long service history in the British Navy. And he was writing, at that time, he was trying to file a war crimes affidavit in Asia against Tony Blair. Now, as I said, I was just put in touch with Peter because he had a weblog, Air International, and over a period of 3 or 4 months, what I would do was give him some information, and he would then corroborate exactly what I was saying by doing his own research to make it 100% accurate and not libelous or slanderous or defamation. And then he would publish the information on his weblog. And so we started a sequence of articles, and he asked me, he said, well, what do you want to call this, Gordon? He said, it's your sort of expose. And I said, well, I would like it to be called Pandora's Box, because when you see the amount of politicians and MPs and VIPs that are involved in all this, as non-executive directors and senior board directors, you'll understand if you lifted the lid up on a chest and it was called Pandora's Box and you had all these faces coming out of it, Tony Blair, David Cameron, Nick Clegg, it didn't matter who it was, but to show that there were very many senior politicians involved in covering up massive fraud, theft and money laundering. And that's what Pandora's box came about.
Right, I see. So you and Gordon struck up this working relationship, which started off with this company that got your attention, which was Anglesey Mining. Is that correct?
Anglesey Mining PLC, and nuclear waste caught my attention. I mean, nuclear waste. Nobody wants to live with nuclear waste, do they?
No. So how did you put these two together, John and Gordon?
Well, Anglesey Mining, the Paris Mountain, it's 5 miles away from where I live.
Right.
Or 10 miles at the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking into it with Gordon. Gordon explained to me what was going on, and
we've had a look at the company, and you can see that it's also got directors that are also on board of nuclear industry companies, or which way?
That's right. There's Dr. Hugh Morris.
Yes.
Was the main contact going back to 1989 to 1991, when you study the biographies of each director, past and current, of Anglesey Mining PLC and its offshoot subsidiaries and joint venture partners. So there's a direct link to the nuclear industry through Dr. Hugh Morris. Right.
Now, along with that, Gordon, with your experience of mining, there would be you couldn't put this nuclear waste in any old mine then, let's say. It would have to be of a specific depth, I'm guessing. Would that be correct?
No, specific stability of ground.
I see.
Is a major importance. Because when, if you studied the history of Anglesey, it was investigated by the Nuclear Authority as being one of the prime areas to sink a shaft. And that's well recorded.
Right.
However, but the general public would have to be put to them via their council to be able to accept that nuclear waste would be stored there. And this is my main sort of confrontation with Anglesey County Council, is that it is my firm belief, I firmly believe that given the instrument of the people who sunk the shaft, being Cementation Mining, who are the subcontractors for Sellafield, if you understand where Sellafield is, the nuclear division, which covers Magnox North as well. And that's what gave me, not just because of the directors of Anglesey Mining PLC, but I believe that it, over 30 years, because there's been no mining activity other than the sinking of the shaft, that they've used this as a covert cover to prevent anybody looking and gaining access to the offshoot galleries that they did. It was 1,000 meters offshoot galleries back in the sinking period of 1989-91. And so, as I said, I followed up basically that the board of directors historically were all involved in multiple multi-million pound cash burns of other companies where no mining ever existed. That was my concern initially, but the nuclear waste story came in when I also found an article written by Private Eye in 1990 and 91, which I wrote to Private Eye, and they sent me the 2 articles of which I've confronted the County Council, Anglesey County Council, and the Welsh Authority. I mean, these were no idiots. Mm-hmm. They also did their research. It's just they never put it together with a bunch of con artists who have for 30 odd years been cash burning all the investors' cash that's gone into that mine. Well, it's not a mine really, it's just a shaft with an offshoot gallery. That's all it is.
I mean, suspicions were raised then where you could see the link, the paper trail was becoming more clearer at this point then by the time, and concerns are pointing towards actual nuclear waste being stored there, Gordon. Would that be fair?
Yeah, because what I did do, I researched the decommissioned John Andrews would probably, or Craig would be able to tell me the correct pronunciation of the North Wales decommissioned Magnox mine. There's one at Wyfer, and the other one is, I say I can't pronounce it properly. Not being a... Pardon?
The South one is?
Yes, yeah. Now that one fell into line with myself doing the investigations on a massive boiler room in Bangor, when the person who was living in that property with a convicted fraudster and forger and money launderer was a guy called David William Mills, and he was the system manager at that particular Magnox North decommissioned power station. So that the power station was decommissioned in 1989 to 1991 when the shaft was sunk. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So where did the waste go from that decommissioned mine? Simple. It couldn't have gone to Sellafield because, one, you'd obviously try to put it in its closest area for cost effectiveness. And that's where my suspicions got raised even further.
Darren,
Yes, go on, John.
what I want to say is, when Gordon was explaining all this stuff to me,
Yes.
it came, it came to me as a reality, because I live on top of the mine, if you understand what I mean.
I understand.
I've seen this mine, and before I ever met Gordon, I didn't even think about this mine. It was Anglesey Mining, it was a mining company. But when Gordon explained everything, and you looked at the mine and you thought, there's nobody there. It came home, the reality hit home, if you understand.
I do.
There's nobody there. There's nobody working there. Do you know what I mean? But
Well,
I would
yes,
like to say, and I don't think I've told Craig Gordon this, but I totally forgot until now, to be honest with you. But last night I was in a meeting. Craig knows the lads, Barry Williams and Ian Roberts and all these. We had a meeting. Well, I had a chat with Barry Williams last night, and he's met a guy who worked at the mine when you were putting the nuclear waste in it. So he's caught on to somebody that knows about this.
Right. So
I was going to tell you, God, but I totally forgot until he came up now. But
I'm coming to see you.
right. So
the guy has told Barry Williams that I'll express it the way he said it to me. He said, I was there. I know this nuclear waste there because I was there working. This is what this guy told him. So this gave Barry a bit of a shock. So Barry knows where he is, so we're going to see him again.
Right. Well, it would be handy. Well, it'd be fantastic if we can get him there for the presentation on the 19th. That would be something. We've got Sheriff and Gordon. We've got the paper trail. We've got huge, vast amounts of money being shipped between different companies. But at the end of the day, John, you were living there, and you can see over the last 30 years that not much work is going on there. So there's nothing going on there. Right. So what kind of, just give the listeners a grasp of the kind of figures we're talking about here, Gordon.
Well, if you took the every year, this company Anglesey Mining PLC is not even on the AIM board, which is the Alternative Investment Market Board. They are on the main board. Now, this is a public listed company which, in order to raise cash, floats millions of shares. And so its operation started when you check the forensic records of the company. They started back in 1984 from its initial concept. And that would have been through a Canadian female lawyer. I haven't got the documents in front of me, but it was a Canadian female who was the initiator, the lawyer, and Robert Ian Cuthbertson. And they played a very smart game, because what they did was they listed a company, Anglesey Mining PLC, and then they also listed another company, Anglesey Mining PLC, with a sole director as sole trader under Robert Ian Cuthbertson. But then they played another smart move, because they also issued another sole trader license using the same company name, Anglesey Mining PLC, with another gentleman called Don McCullum. Now, through my ability to recover documents, what I did was I checked through the main board of Anglesey Mining PLC, which has the people like Dinesh Kumar and others, which were a paper trail to me to other massive frauds in Canada and South Africa. And so when I looked to try and find Don McCullum, I couldn't. But I did find him as a sole trader, and apparently he is part of the infrastructure. He's the person that answers the phone for the recorded number for Anglesey Mining PLC, and yet he's not listed as a board director. When I rumbled them a couple of months ago in the communication, not just between myself and Don McCullum, but John actually phoned these people and went to meet them. And so this sole trading companies disappeared. They delisted them. But it's a bit too late. It's like the horse bolting, and the stable door is wide open because I've got all the documents.
Indeed. I just wonder, John, how did these people react when faced with the proof that you presented them?
Well, they were calm. These people are professionals, Darren. But, I'm a good one at judging character, and I could see, that something was not right with them. But these are professionals, do you know what I mean?
Well, absolutely.
They're professionals at hiding things, Mm-hmm. But things wasn't 100%. I could sense something was wrong. I mean, Don McCallum, like Gordon was saying, was a sole trader. When I met Don McCallum with Bill Hooley, Don McCallum looked to me like a gopher. Go do this, go do that.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a sole trader. I don't know what he was, but he wasn't a sole trader. He looked like more like a gopher. And Bill Hooley, the director, he was the boss sort of thing. Nothing, the sole trader is a sole trader at the end of the day.
Yes, but again, with these fronts and boiler rooms, they just need names at the end of the day, Gordon. It doesn't. They're not actual business.
Trading entities.
No, they're not actually doing businesses. They can get any.
What they need is a vehicle to move money.
Yes.
And you can only do that by having a registered company.
Uh-huh.
And having 3 companies under the same name, with different company ID numbers, they were very clever because nobody, other than I don't think myself, for the last 14 years, have understood how they can move vast amount of money. And I'm talking hundreds of millions. And I think in the one financial report that I have, one trading year, quite recently, they lost 31 million. Now, how can you have a mining company that doesn't do any mining lost 31 million? I mean, they haven't done anything. So there's a due diligence failure by the trading standards people of Anglesey County Council and the Financial Services Authority to say, where is their duty of care to investigate public listed companies which haven't done anything in 31 years.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they got an oath to the people when they take these positions, and if something like this is not in the public interest, I mean, I struggle to think what would be. But these characters, this is how they operate, Gordon. It's multinational. It spans it spans a globe basically.
Well, it's transcontinental, because what my understanding in the mining industry, and to associate it with these mining companies specifically, because their directors have a trail. They have a forensic trail of operating hundreds of other companies where they move in and out of these shell companies, destroying their financial assets and moving them to offshore companies in the British Virgin Islands and Barbados, where they're outside of the jurisdiction of the FCA and the FSA and Serious Fraud Office. And that's how clever these people are, because they've been doing this and expanding their network for over 40 years. And that's where John was quite right. These people have got the gift of the gab. They're used to standing up in front of an audience and lying through their teeth. I mean, because they're used to standing on a platform, conning investors to pump money into a company where they're not doing anything. They're just stealing the money. That's what it is, basically.
Yeah, but in this case, along with the theft, I mean, when we're talking about storing nuclear waste without the consent of the people of Anglesey, then we're moving on to a
Different subject.
a whole different ball game here now, Gordon. And I mean,
100%. And you can ask John. My main concern, you can stuff the money, that means nothing. In its time, I think it's got a half-life of plutonium and uranium radioactive waste. It's got a half-life of something like 500 million years. So, you know, God forbid that these people who have stuck something in a very stable environment, wherever it is in that offshoot gallery, the rock base is very stable, but nobody can say for certain that there could not be a catastrophic earthquake which would open drums, which would then leach out into the water table and then get into the population through streams and groundwater. And that would be catastrophic.
indeed.
There's no getting away with it.
Well,
And so these people will be long dead in 100 years' time. But what happens in 150 years' time? Do you get where I'm coming from?
well, yes, and I mean, I'm seeing it even in a shorter time period when you think of the man-made earthquakes that fracking is scientifically proven to cause. I mean, even in the most stable areas of America, they suffer in these tremors. I mean, admittedly, they only get to maybe 4 on the Richter scale, but you don't want anything near that in Anglesey with that kind of material stored underground.
And that was my sentiment entirely when I approached the Anglesey County Council and the Welsh Authority, that I said, I believe 100% that my research and the research of other people, including Private Eye, it warrants an investigation by the local authority. And that's where where I must have got the backs up of a lot of people, because when I mentioned Robert Ian Cuthbertson, I said he has a direct lineage through his brother to other Welsh Anglesey County Council authorities in the education. So there you've got more or less an insider.
Alice College in Gordon.
That's correct, yeah.
They must have had the thumbs up of a few politicians along the way, and of course regulators within the nuclear industry. I mean, we see the regulators within the fracking industry. I mean, totally useless. I would have thought that the nuclear industry would be.
Darren, if I can just say, Darren.
Yes, of course, John.
One of the directors at that time is a Lord Cledwyn Hughes from Anglesey. He was one of the directors with Anglesey Mining. So when you say where somebody would have to tick the boxes or nod their head,
Yeah.
well, there was a Lord involved there, and I think Lord Cledwyn Hughes, he lives in Tratherby on Anglesey. He's an Anglesey resident, but he's a Lord, and I think he was.
Well, there's not one, John, is there?
Yeah,
there's Lord Crickhowell as well.
Lord Crickhowell.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon, but Lord Cledwyn, even though I'm from Anglesey, but Lord Cledwyn was, I think he was something in Parliament as well, wasn't he, with the Labour?
Well, that's why I said there's a strong Labour influence into covering up the misdeeds of these directors and these fake companies. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And say, I used to be a Labour man in my military days, but as you go through life, you understand that not all is said to you is true.
And merely for the sake of the listeners who would be wondering how this could happen, this is what we are telling you. It's there, it's in the paper and the documents and the directors through the forensic research that John Gordon and Craig have done. In order to do such an operation, it would take the highest in authority to have given the nod, and a hell of a lot of money in order to do this kind of. It has to be described as illegal storage, Gordon. And
Well,
I say it's illegal. But it may be safe, but it has to be illegal as far as the people of Anglesey and that of Wales have not given their consent to this one bit, have they?
Well, they wouldn't have been informed, because what happens is that under this, so I would believe that under nuclear storage, if it's to be a deep repository, which can be 300-400 meters, and then the waste, regardless of whether it's low, medium, or high radioactive waste, it must come with the consent of the people. I mean, and then you would have to have access to that for it to be regularly monitored. And say, because I was trained in nuclear, chemical and biological warfare as a shelter marshal to do decontamination, I would understand that you'd be checking this every week. Yeah, so it is my firm belief that a lot of money passed hands, and in order to prevent the population or anybody else getting anywhere near it, they've run as a front cover Anglesey Mining PLC.
And through that paid the cronies.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into a few of these cronies. John, you mentioned a couple of lords there. Now, these boys have been doing it for many years. Gordon, would you like to go into it a bit more?
Yeah, because if you're talking about an elitist group of people in my books, and my research stems back over 14 years. And what I did was I started to catalogue individual mining companies and their directors, and then saw that there was it went beyond coincidence that these people were hopping in and out of different companies that all ended up in financial disasters. And that's when I started to say, back in 2002, I said, no, this is not right. This is not just one or two companies where the same directors are popping up. It's hundreds. And then I found out it was thousands. And that's where my back got up as an ex-serviceman, to say, when you're working for most of your adult life and you tend to get 2 or 3 jobs or 5 jobs, these people were hopping in out of 50, 100, 200 companies. Now, it doesn't take a brain surgeon, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that that goes beyond coincidence. And this is where the due diligence of our intelligence services, police and financial services authority must be complicit in covering all this up.
They have to be. John, how are the people in Anglesey taking this news on the ground? What kind of feedback are you getting when you're explaining to people, let's say in the pub, of these findings?
They're disgusted with it. But people want an investigation. You know, it has to be looked at. This is what I'm getting. You know, this has to be looked at. But you know, there's other toxic waste on Anglesey, and that we found out about in the old Anglesey aluminium plot there that they've sold to Land and Lakes. You know.
Okay.
So I was talking yesterday to the director, Richard Sidney, and he had a gentleman with him called Rick Gerard, who works for the company, and I asked him about the toxic waste that was leaking into the water. He said, and he slipped up, he said, we've done tests, we've done professional jobs, and we've tested the toxic leakage into the water, and there's several types of toxic compounds there.
Okay.
So I jumped on top of him straight away and asked him, listen, name me one that's in there. And he said, well, look, I can't remember, he said. He couldn't remember, but there is toxic waste leaking into the water. The council know about it. They all know about it, and they've done nothing to clean it up because it's going to cost millions. But that's just over there. So there's toxic waste on Anglesey in various other places as well, and they're not doing anything about it. They know about it. And regarding Anglesey Mining, I reported it to the council leader, Ian Williams, Rhina Piorwe, Albert Owen. Albert Owen can run as fast as an athlete. Let me tell you that, Darren. Because I called him in Holyhead, and you should have seen him go. He was faster than an athlete. He should be in the Olympics.
Yeah, well,
you know, but trying to tell these people they don't want to know, they don't want to listen, and they just ignore you. They just run away. And that includes the Daily Post, the local media around here. They don't want to know.
Well, yes, I can imagine the media are complicit in this cover-up, as in all areas. I mean, they're just merely a utility for these people to perpetrate this fraud and corruption, and that's exactly what they do. So there's what I'm getting at for the listeners is there is quite an awareness in Anglesey then, John, about this issue.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been shouting my mouth up for quite a while to put other people to this.
Right. So just to give the presentation another little shout out, it's on the 19th, which is a Sunday, and although there may be a lot of awareness in Anglesey itself, I'd urge everyone who can make it across Wales or even England even to come along if you can, because this affects everybody, not just in Anglesey but in the whole UK. I would imagine this has been going on elsewhere, Gordon. Have you come across any indications to suggest that?
Well, of course, because what I have in my records are over 1,300 companies that are dual listed in Toronto, on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the Australian Stock Exchange, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and all these companies have dual listing in 1 or 3 countries. And so when they operate a subsidiary, which is in, say, Panama or South America, Peru or Argentina, that what the people that don't understand, the people that see the TV presentations where a bank says, well, we lost 400 billion this year. Well, it's toxic debt. But what the people don't understand is who lent companies this money that they call toxic debt. And this is where I've come in and said, well, I know where it goes. I know exactly who you lent the money to, and you've written it off as a toxic debt. And when I've traced it, it comes from these virtual oil, gas and mining companies.
Yeah. And I mean, you see these horrific industrial spillages and whatnot all over the planet. I mean, they seem to be happening everywhere, and of course the first thing that happens is that old advert will come on the TV, give us your money, there's been a disaster over in north of Africa or somewhere. It's the same modus operandi, Gordon, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, that's right.
And so what I'm trying to get through to our listeners here this evening is that if you can get to Anglesey on the 19th of April, and it'll give you just a small insight, because it's not just the people of Anglesey, it's not just the people of Wales, it's not just the people of the UK even. This is global, Gordon, and it affects the working class man everywhere.
If there are any miners, and there must be hundreds, thousands of miners, that understood how the coal industry, the coal mines of Wales were sold down the Swanee by Thatcher and her cronyites, was that we started to import coal from France.
Yes.
That was brilliant, wasn't it? And they shut a lot of the collieries down to say that they were non-viable. Who's to say they were non-viable? Because 90% of probably the coal that they were digging out was exported at a lower cost. And when you check the ownership of the mines, the coal mines, you will come across the same cronies.
Yeah.
The same. And they sold our people out. And I say our people because I'm not North Walian, I'm South Walian. But it's still my people.
Absolutely. So, for anyone who's listening out there this evening who can make it to Anglesey on the 19th of April, I urge you to do so. I'll be going myself along with a few other people from Port Talbot. But this is a critical issue just now, and the politicians who are complicit in this, they're not ignoring you for any other reason except they're up to their necks in it. The money trail, they can't get away from it, as John explained earlier. When John approached these people in Anglesey, these joking companies suddenly disappeared. But it's too late, you can't close the door after the horse has bolted, so to speak. So these people, we've got the evidence, and they really need to be held account on this. So awareness is the key for bringing these people to book, guys, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're quite right, Darren. And what needs to be understood is that in this PowerPoint presentation that I'll do on the 19th, it's not just going to be a load of paperwork shoved up on a screen. There'll be a 14-minute, and I say that 14-minute audio-video production, of which I have a master copy, of billion dollar organised crime linked to the mining industry, which is directly related to the directors of Anglesey Mining PLC, where they shot a mining magnate, they killed him, they assassinated him, because he was going to come out and divulge exactly what I've been doing for the last 14 years. They shot and killed him. They killed him with 7 low-velocity rounds. And that's part of the presentation that I'll do on the 19th, is to show the people of Anglesey who these directors of Anglesey Mining are affiliated to, directly.
Yeah, and it needs to be done. I mean, again, the person who got assassinated, I mean, he'd be one of, I would possibly guess, thousands of victims worldwide who may not have been assassinated on direct orders with a gun, but just the toxicity leaking in the water that they have to drink, that's in their food. I mean, they have to be super careful in Anglesey and in the UK itself. But I mean, in these so-called third world countries where these other firms and mining companies are set up, they can get away with bloody murder, can't they, really, Gordon?
Well, yeah, because I understand that they do regular sampling of the water for radioactivity based upon the Wifer power station, where they check the water. Now, how many of the residents of Anglesey actually check to see the reports or even bother? Because we don't, we human beings, and our lives are so complex as they are, just surviving, that we don't bother. We trust the integrity and the honour of the people that we appoint as councillors and members of parliament. That's what they're there to do, is to protect the people. And what I've found out is that these people are paid off. They are complicit. They are complicit because they've been doing this for generations. That's the damnation of people who you put into trust.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the water, is it, Gordon? They told us the other night that they're checking the air quality as well. And this is, half a mile away from the mountain where this mine is. They're actually checking the air quality for radiation as well, or whatever you call it.
There's always, you mustn't confuse this, John, is that you always get background radiation.
Yeah.
And you can take a Geiger counter and you're still going to pick up background radiation. And that comes through not through flowing water. It comes with the actual metal minerals that are in the soil.
Yeah.
And but it's minor. However, I believe that
They put it over, Gordon, to say that they were doing it for Wilver Power Station. They were doing the air quality scanning or whatever. And but Wilver Power Station was 10 miles away, and Paris Mountain is half a mile away.
Yeah, the difference is, because it's a power station, and what they're using is heat transfer from fuel rods, nuclear fuel rods, to turn gas turbines. Now, when you do that, what you have is a high condensating water output, which is through the cooling towers, to cool that down. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And so what they're checking is that through leaks, radioactive water penetrating in the condensates that then get released through the cooling towers into the atmosphere. And that's what they're probably doing, is checking that.
Right. So, what we got to, what we've tried to describe to listeners, and I hope you can get a grasp of the extent of this, is a huge multinational, scam, basically, Ponzi scheme based on hundreds, if not thousands, of different companies. But overlapping that is a serious issue of what they've been doing with nuclear waste in the mines in Anglesey, along with other shenanigans, which has been exposed by both Gordon, Craig and John, where the highest in the so-called perceived authority have been involved in this and have had their cut and have been paid. Now, this has led to arrests in other cases you have been working on, Gordon. So we're not just talking frivolously here. I mean, people have been thrown off in directorships and even gone to jail. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I said part of my research going back 2007, 2008 included the directors of a company called Uramin Inc. And what I did was, luckily, when I publish something on a web blog or on a message board, I take hard copy scans and screenshots to make sure that I've got a forensic record of when I put it on there and the people that complained about me putting it on there in my attempts to warn the investors. Do you understand?
Indeed.
And so what I had is, going back to 2007, 2008, 2009, I'd mentioned the same directors were involved in a company called Uramin Inc. And this was a company that was structured in Namibia, where I've been when I was out in South Africa, which took over a care and maintenance uranium mine, which was then a loss-making mine, and then they purchased it for $100,000. Within 6 months, they sold it, the directors sold it, to a French company, a French nuclear company called Arriva Nuclear France. And Arriva Nuclear France purchased it, or the senior board of directors of a public listed company in France, purchased this worthless plot of dirt, an old defunct mine, for $2.5 billion. So, if ever you're in the market of selling antiques, forget it. Buy a plot of dirt or an old flooded quarry, and somebody will come along and offer you 6 million times more than what you paid for it. Well, that's not in reality. Because what this was, it was a massive fraud. It was a massive theft of the assets of a public listed company, being Arriva Nuclear in France, which paid out to complicit cohorts who were directors of Uramin Inc., because they were common directors in another company.
Yeah.
And those people were, one is Miss Anne Laveron in France for Arriva Nuclear, and her husband, Oliver Frick. And they were complicit with the directors of Uramin Inc., including a guy called Sir Samuel Essen Jonah, a Ghanaian. And unbeknown to the rest of the world, these two people were also on the board of Vodafone.
Oh, well. Just for the listeners to understand that how serious this is and how solid the evidence is, you were contacted by Swiss and French fraud investigators directly about this case, Gordon. Would that be correct?
That's correct. I've got the correspondence which I carefully catalogued, and what happened was they contacted me to say, what else do you know about these directors? And I gave a full précis of where they've been involved in other money laundering, corporate espionage cases, where nothing is ever done because they've normally got on the board of directors senior politicians, members of the House of Lords, who are the protective screen around these Ponzi scams. And so they, over a period of about a year and a half, I divulged certain information to those, and then these investigators were acting on behalf of the honest directors of Arriva Nuclear in France, who then started to conduct their own investigations into other deals that these same con artists had done, where they purchased for hundreds of millions of dollars other tracts of land under the guise of it being uranium mines and quarries, where they were sold piles of junk. And these are public listed companies.
Indeed. So, just for the sake of the listeners, again, I hope this reconfirms that not only is the evidence solid and true, but it has led to arrests and people being thrown off boards. I mean, losing their directorships and companies being shut down. So,
well, Miss Anne Laverone was kicked off the board of Arriva Nuclear, and her husband, Oliver Frick. They then asked me for some more information. Well, they did courtesy investigations in Chad, Sudan, and various other North African countries to facilitate charges against Miss Anne Laverone and her cohorts. And I was told just 3 months ago, that the evidence has been handed to French prosecutors. And so I'm not going to jump the gun, but I know Miss Anne Laverone tried to take the investigators to court 3 times and she lost every case. So there's a credibility for myself, which will be backed up if anybody wants to see the correspondence. I'll willingly show them on the 19th. Well, I'm not a bullshit artist.
Hey, listen, that's it. I mean, it's all out there. Gordon has put this out there, and there is a unique opportunity on the 19th in Anglesey to go and see and examine this evidence for yourself. But the point we're getting at here is this is real evidence. This is really happening. People have been locked up in Europe over this, but this is the beginning now of what we hope to be the clean-up in the UK. And I mean, there's lots of characters and politicians involved in this. We've been speaking about one, Peter Hain lately, Gordon, and her relationship to a certain Andrea Davison. I know we're sliding away from Anglesey a bit, but just for the listeners, just to grasp the gravity of this and how this works, across the UK, basically.
Yeah, well, Andrea Davison came into my line through backward tracing out of a major boiler room in London, which was addressed, was 788 790 Finchley Road, where I tracked there were over 260,000 shell companies, to which I traced some of them to fake mining companies. One was Gold Mining Company Limited, which changed its name to Noricum Gold Limited, which strangely had a director's name called David Anthony Lenegas involved. And he was just on the BBC today saying that they'd found 50 to 100 billion barrels of oil. Well...
Was that that wasn't under a certain prison, was it, or something? Are you that?
I'm sorry, but people are so gullible.
Gordon.
Pardon?
You were on Sky 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as I said, what I've tried to do is, when I've contacted the authorities, including the BBC, when I went to the BBC on the 1st or the 3rd, after we'd been on the steps of Trafalgar Square, when I went into the BBC, I pointed out to the senior executive that I spoke to the involvement of David Anthony Lenegas in all these Ponzi scams. And there they are, letting him in, sitting in those plush studios with all the reporters gathered in their main rooms, giving out this amazing strategic oil find that he'd found. Well, if you trace the other 147 financial disasters that this man has been involved in, including Lonhro, then you'll understand that some people need to go to jail very quickly because they're just extracting the urine. They're not... they've stepped the bounds of normality when it comes to exploiting the good people of this country.
That's exactly right, and this is why awareness is key. I mean, it's the only way that we can hold these people to account is by bringing enough awareness to enough people to understand the gravity of what we're talking about here this evening. This is as serious as it gets, listeners. I mean, we have nuclear waste being stored in Wales, in Anglesey, without the consent of any of the people, along with massive corruptions with politicians, House of Lords, people from the private sector. They're all in it together, as that sick quote from the politicians say, and they're not talking about us, are they?
No. Well, you mentioned the head of intelligence and security, Sir Malcolm Rifkin.
Yeah.
That's the man that they've just got rid of for taking cash with his cohort, Jack Straw. These are the people that send us to war. This is the people that destroy sovereign countries and flatten them, and then put our troops on the front line and slaughter thousands of us as well as them, the enemy, so-called.
Yeah.
This is the trust that we have. No wonder that they got rid of them. There's a few more they need to get rid of, and I'll name some of them on the 19th.
Indeed. And I mean, just to touch on it, if you want to, I mean, there's special air service involved. I mean, the highest.
I mean,
the highest in the
military.
military.
Their backs covered, they get the best.
Yeah, I mean, the people of the has been trained to the highest standard within our military, complicit with these people, and I mean, it needs to be stopped. And these people do need to be named, Gordon.
Well, I've named them.
Yeah.
I've named them with American ambassadors who are complicit. These are the part of the mineral theft rings and the blood diamond dealing, you know, the conflict diamonds, and weapons trading. These are the people that work for industry but are given tacit support from governments.
It's absolute. It's all connected, Gordon, isn't it? The riots, riots over in Africa now, where they got this thing going off in the Congo, Nigeria, Chad, Liberia, Libya, Somalia. We're going over to. I mean, it spans the whole continent really, and I mean, these people are at battle, aren't they? I mean, we're supplying the guns, we're giving them the ammunition, and then we just go in and steal the minerals. Or if there's no minerals there, we'll just make it up and we'll launder some money.
If you ask John or Craig, when you watch the news and you see these rebel factions where they've managed to get camera crews in, and you see them all waving their military small arms about up in the air, tell me, with logistical support for any military force, it has to come from a production company and it has to be supplied by a dealer. Now, it doesn't take, as I said, a rocket scientist to look at them and say, hey, those are American weapons. Where did they get them? They are British weapons. Where did they get them? There's always somebody that should be able to... they all got a serial number. Every single round has an identity number to tell you where it comes from. Every shell... Every cannon shell, they've all got a serial number. That's where our intelligence service should be looking, at the people that supply the logistical support to enable terrorist groups to start killing thousands of people.
Well, they do, and I mean, they literally round up villages and send them to work under the mines. I mean, do you remember those Africans tried to go on strike and the police opened fire on them?
Peter Hain was there.
It was only 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, Peter Hain was there, wasn't he?
Yeah, of course he was. I mean, it was a case of...
standing up there, get his mugshot in.
That was Lonsin.
No. It was Lonmin.
Lonmin?
Yeah, well, Lon... You see, people don't understand is that when you do the forensic trail of those company names, you can see that they all generate and were Lonro companies that have changed their names. That's all they were.
I think those strikers were out maybe 2 weeks before the police were given the order, shoot them, get them back underground, scratching gold out, and unfortunately that's what happened. I mean, they're not even allowed to go on strike. These people are...
Well, I say, unfortunately for the...
They're not legal mines, Gordon, are they, as we know them?
Well, if you check the territorial integrity of the mining infrastructures in Johannesburg, what they call the Western Reef.
Yeah.
That's where I worked. I worked for Goldfields of South Africa.
Can I have a cup of tea, love?
East Driefontein and West Driefontein.
Yeah.
And that covered the whole of the eastern area. When you look at those, the hundreds of mines that are there, they're all operated by Anglo-American or Goldfields of South Africa. Those are the main infrastructures. And then they're controlled by the Oppenheimers and by the Rothschilds. That's what it delves down to. The bankers.
Gordon, we also know who ordered the shooting, but I don't know if we should say that. I don't know.
No, I think you should just hold back on a few things. Look, we like to keep ace cards.
Yeah.
But But when you looked at, unless you've actually been on a large mining complex where they have hostels which are subdivided with razor wire separating those hostels, because each hostel contains a tribe. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They try to separate the Xhosa from the Zulu, which have had 400 years of battle history fighting themselves. And that will never leave them. The Zulu believes that he is strong enough to slaughter the Xhosas from Transkei. And so it goes on. They've got the Swana, the Sutu, the Shangan. And all these individual tribes are kept apart. And that's why they prefer them to be segregated. Because trust me, when they decide to have a go at each other, it's with pangas and assegais. And then the mine security go in there with shotguns and start blasting at both sides. You know this. Trust me, it's not a nice environment. I don't care how nice Peter Haynes says it is. I've been there. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's not nice at all. It's
No.
it's slavery, isn't it? Basically, under the order of death. Get down the mine, or you die.
Well, if you talk, the native staff that work there, they never seem to get educated enough to get the higher ranks within what they call white collar stuff.
Yeah.
And so what you have is the physical labour people, the rock drillers, the stopers, the developers. They're the ones that do the grafting, the heavy work. Then you get your engineering staff. I had 39 that worked with me, and trust me, I treated them like I would treat my own family.
Of course.
And that's where I got my respect. I was told that on my first day I was to go and pick a pickaninny. And I said, pardon? They said, no, you've got to have a pickaninny. He carries your bag and your tools. I said, no, nobody carries my tools, they're mine. So, yeah, I was the only white guy from the UK that carried his own tools. And I used to run sometimes 4 or 5 miles with my tools and big bag. But then I got respect from the staff that worked with me, not for me, with me.
It's not far off what they actually done to the population of Wales a few hundred years ago. I mean, when they depleted villages, they sent villages underground, and they get paid in chits, so they would have to spend in the shop of the crown. And
well, you mean the Parry's Mountain token?
Indeed. That's exactly what I'm off about, Gardner, though I didn't know.
And they could never spend it anywhere else other than in the mine shop.
That's it, yeah.
Yes, I get that, yeah.
It is, it's not too far away, is it? That our brothers and sisters in Africa are suffering pretty much the same as the Welsh did.
They call it Sanquiaiti, or what's it called, Gordon?
What?
The chit.
Sanquiaiti or something. That's what they call it in Amlo.
Is it? Well, as I said, when I was a young boy, I found a box of Davy lamps, and next to it I found a little leather purse with Parry's Mountain tokens in it, penny tokens.
Good grief.
And I treasured them up until I was posted overseas, and I gave them to a pub in Tredegar. There's a pub at the top of the Heads of the Valley Road. And I sold some of these lamps for £1 each, I think it was. But but it's nice to see them.
Indeed. But the comparisons of what the Crown basically are doing in Africa and other continents is not far off the same agenda that they done to us in Wales, basically, guys, is it? It's the same modus operandi where they use the population in order to extract any value, be that mining or gold or anything really from the people, and leave the people desolate.
Well, I know you probably don't want to change the subject, but something that came to light to me a few days ago, which I've made accurate reports on the internet, was you've seen the hoo-ha with Top Gear and Jeremy Clarkson being given the sack.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to give you an exclusive now for anybody, for all your listeners. I told John about it. is that the guy that did the dirty work on Jeremy Clarkson was a guy called Lord Hall.
Okay.
He's the head of the BBC. Now you will recall that when I went there on the 1st, nothing has been done. Nothing. They've done nothing. They're all hiding in a shell, but they're like ostrich with their head in the sand. It's because I put it to a few people that Lord Anthony William Tony Hall, he was born on the 3rd of the 3rd, 1951. He was also in charge of the Royal Opera House. Now that's quite nice, that.
Not a bad job for him to get it.
If you like the skippy-doo-dah dancing. But I don't think you see many Welsh miners zooming around in those sort of shows. But he's the one that got rid of Jeremy Clarkson. He refused to re-sign his contract. And then, by doing some research into his biography using Wikipedia, I found out that he was the liveryman of the Worshipful Company of Painters and Stainers. Now, as a matter of interest, when I was checking Roger William Turner, one of the registered directors of Anglesey Mining, and Robert Ian Cuthbertson, I found out that through their company, one of which was a film company, that it was linked to this Painters and Stainers Hall at 8 Little Trinity Lane in London. And that company was linked to multiple other companies, film companies. And it just so happens that it was a Masonic lodge. So here we have the head of the BBC sacking Jeremy Clarkson, and yet his company is directly linked, his Masonic lodge is directly linked to the same directors of Anglesey Mining PLC. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, slightly. I'm developing my own theory where to go in Gordon, but please continue.
Yeah, because out of that address, out of that Masonic hall, comes many other mining companies. Phoenix Mining Company Limited, Ltd, and Phoenix Mining PLC, and Phoenix Mining Limited Limited. So 3 variations of the same company, all with different ID numbers, and then I bring you back to Anglesey Mining PLC, which has 2 sole traders with 2 separate ID numbers, and then the other company which has got a separate ID number. So there you have a cross-reference of how you can put a smoke and mirrors cover on 3 companies all with the same name. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yes, indeed.
Is it not just LTD for limited, but LIMITED Limited, and then PLC. 3 different companies, all with the same name, just slight variations, and linked to the same Masonic lodge to which this head of the BBC, Lord Anthony William Tony Hall, is what the senior liveryman for that Masonic lodge. Amazing, isn't it? It goes beyond coincidence, put it like that.
No, it absolutely goes beyond any coincidence, and as we alliterated on earlier, the evidence that John, Craig and Gordon have amounted over the years on not just Anglesey but other multinational companies that are involved in this corruption, it is legit. It has put people in prison. People have lost their directorships, but we here in the UK we're at the stage where we're only now uncovering it with the great work that the lads are doing, and it certainly does all link together, Gordon. It's undeniable, isn't it?
Oh, it's undeniable. What happens is that because this is industrial scale fraud, theft and money laundering, nobody in the public, if you were walking in the street and you asked them, do you know that there's a company that stole £200 billion, you'd laugh, because you'd say, our intelligence services just wouldn't let that happen, and neither would the police. But when you watch the television, if you're fortunate enough to have Sky or Virgin TV, you will see that they quite like to brag about the local police force going round with a van at night and a cleaning truck, stopping people urinating in the street after a Friday night slash, you know. But they're good at showing a programme like that. But what about a company that steals £200 million in a few short years? Nobody's interested in that. So what's doing more damage to the economy? A guy that's had a bit too much drink, and because they've closed all the public toilets, having to hide around the corner of a building and then get spotted by a riot van with 16 coppers in it, who then shunter him down the street with a bucket of water and disinfect them. You know, where is the reality of what we are using our police force for?
And £100 fine.
Oh, you got caught as well, did you?
Already done.
But
No, what I'm saying, Gordon, is,
Yeah.
you know, it's all profit to them, isn't it? You know,
Of
for the
course.
police force, it's all profit. The £100 fine, it's gone from 60 to £100. So it's
Well, it's
all
not-
profit for something that, you know,
yeah, I mean,
you're not wearing your seatbelts. You know,
Yeah,
£100.
and no insurance.
No insurance.
They've turned the police into a business
Yeah.
rather than stopping serious organised crime. Where when you ring the serious fraud office, which I've done many times,
Yeah.
and they say, "Oh, you don't understand. We're such a small force, you know." I said, "Well, this isn't small money. This is billions, and you're not interested." You know, well, just put a report in and we'll have a look at it. And as I said, I'm quite a determined character, as John will tell you. And we need to sit up, take attention of what's happening.
well, listen,
All these millions, Darren. Look at it. All these. This is coming from my opinion.
yeah,
All these millions being taken away from the country or through these mining companies, and then you've got food banks all over the place here. People are starving, wanting food. You know,
yep. It's
and unemployment on Anglesey is sky high, and the councillors, the council, the Welsh Assembly, they all know about it, and they're ignoring it. And these people are still unemployed, no work for them, and food banks all over the place, and these councillors know about it, and they're doing that. They don't care.
no, it's asset stripping of everything that our people have built over the last 500 years. They've asset stripped a lot, and now they're even dealing in our own labour. I mean, you mentioning how the names of these companies switch and change. I mean, they're actually floating the people themselves on the stock market now as bonds and collateral for loans for mines that doesn't exist, or a hydro dam that you don't need. I mean, this is depicted in the work of the likes of John Perkins has done. The name of the book is Hitman, The Diaries of an Economic Hitman.
Well, funny you should mention the name Hitman. That's also the name of a boxer called Ed McDermott,
Right?
the Hitman. And John would know, if he checked his records, that Ed McDermott was a director of Stellar Resources, which is the front for the Clogau gold mine.
Yeah, I checked that.
Yeah, and so it has now been taken over. Having scared him, he resigned because I published the material. He resigned, and now it's been taken over by Don Strang, and that's Donald Ian George Lehman Strang, who is an ex-MI5 agent. So, you know, this is the depth of our intelligence services that are covering up billion-pound crime.
And this is the gold mine that's situated in Anglesey itself. That's right, guys, is it?
Yeah, the Clogau gold mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
On the mainland, yeah.
Is that not the one the royals use for their gold?
Well, they did, because, unbeknown to everybody else, this Mr. Ed McDermott is a school pal of the Duchess of Cambridge.
Oh.
Handy, eh?
Well, yeah, indeed. I mean,
And he presented, Mr. Ed McDermott, presented 1 ounce of pure Welsh gold to the Royal Treasury for them to use in wedding rings. But he never mentioned that they've got no mining licence. So I'd like to know where he got this 1 ounce of pure Welsh gold. And I reckon it's old pensioners looking for a few quid that are selling cash my gold or cash for gold. And they just melted it down in a nugget Because unless you do a scientific examination, you'll not tell exactly where that gold come from.
Yeah.
They're taking the wee.
They are indeed, but it is costing lives, and it's costing the standard of living of people as well. You know, it's as John touched on. We got food banks springing up everywhere. We got the DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, putting sanctions on people for fraud, basically. I mean, they're using a job seeker site, which is 60% of the jobs on there are totally non-existent. It's a fraudulent site. It's been proven so. Some of the jobs that people have advertised and gone for interviews on, they've been told that they've successfully had the job. All we need is 38 quid in order for you to have a CRB check, and we're away to go Monday. They're handing the money over, going into work Monday, and the firm doesn't even exist. So off the back of people not using that job site, they're then having unfair sanctions on them for weeks at a time. They're expected to live on pennies. And I mean, they're doing the same to our elders, you know, our pensioners. I mean, they're stealing the homes and putting them in the private sector. You know.
A4E's involved with all of this, Darren, you know?
Yes.
A4E, and the lady that owns A4E, she's the director, was the former advisor for David Cameron.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. Well, I don't think so. They are, we ain't.
That's it. And I mean, the sooner...
Emma Harrison, the name is.
There we go. And again, listeners, I urge you, if you didn't have a pen and paper for all these names to follow up the leads that we've given you today, then listen back and go through it again, because this is of the vital importance that we nip this crap in the bud, because people are suffering, you know, worldwide, not just here, but all over the world. These companies are asset stripping the people and leaving them bare with nothing, and then just moving on to the next one. And it's like a conquest in order to keep this fractional reserve banking franchise afloat, which is imploding as we speak. I mean, all the figures they release, I mean, it's absolute crap, isn't it?
Mm.
Well, I said that if you were to look at Robert Ian Cuthbertson, just under one ID number, he had 9 active, 17 resigned and 2 dissolved. And what I did was, way back, I dismantled every single company to which he was affiliated. And even then, I went on to a guy called Howard Bertram Miller. Now, that guy was in a company called Canaccord Genuity Services Limited, which is the company that does all the trading and lending of money to these fake companies.
Yeah.
But then I noticed that he was also a director of the Commonwealth and British Services Limited. And in amongst the directors of that was a guy called Sir Maurice Victor Blank. Now, if I mention a couple of his companies, you might recognise them.
Go on.
RBS, Lloyd's, Chubb Security and Chubb Locks, Charterhouse Capital, Jewish Continuity, HBOS Bank, Bank of Scotland, Trinity Mirror, John, are you taking this?
Yeah, the Daily Post.
Well, there you are. Experian Finance. And so what you have is you have the movers and shakers of the top industry and the banks who are complicit, not just in loaning these virtual companies, what I call the land of Narnia and Hogwarts companies, is that they are complicit in lending them money, which then becomes a toxic debt to the banks, which then they award themselves millions in bonuses for losing the bank's money.
These are the top tier boys are pulling the strings for these private bankers, Gordon, and they essentially.
100%, Darren, 100%.
These are the top tier boys that are running this. They're doing a bid into the private bankers, and they have been for centuries. And
because the people were never, not say intelligent, always intelligent. It's just that we would never think that these right honourable, they call themselves right honourable people, would have the gall to be able to steal hand over foot everything and not give a damn, because there's a rule for us and a rule for them, and our rule are the people that they exploit on the Jeremy Kyle show to laugh at the social people to which walk the streets with us. They deem themselves not to be of the lower standing, and so we're just cannon fodder, I believe.
Well, yes, people need to understand that that's exactly how they treat us with disdain. But I'm starting to think that some of it is out of desperation now, Gordon. Although, yes, greed is mostly played a part in it, but with the way the fractional reserves and the paper market derivatives, especially in the precious metals market, which I know you would be one of your subjects, yeah. The way they've manipulated the prices and the intertwine that with the currency wars, and this thing is truly about to pop. Now, in order for them to balance the books, let's say, they're starting to get desperate in the companies and the way in which they're doing it. I mean, for one lord like that to be a director of so many different banks, especially banks that are being bailed out directly by the people themselves. I mean, that is as plain as you can get it. Is it not, or is it just me? I mean, it's as plain as you can get it, isn't it?
Of course, but nobody in the general public is given the same information that I'm giving out now, because nobody looks.
No, well,
People, when they come home tired from work, they've been working 8-12 hours, they come home from work, and then they sit down and relax, they have their supper, and then they watch a bit of TV or they go to the pub, and then their day starts over afresh. They don't have that. Pardon?
Fall asleep.
Yeah, or fall asleep.
I mean,
but they don't have the intuition or the foresight to understand within this jewel of humanity that this sort of industrial fraud, theft, and money laundering is going on. And what the reason why I'm coming to Anglesey, one, primarily, it's to try to orchestrate an inquiry into the possibility of the Paris Mountain Morris shaft being a nuclear waste repository, and secondly is for some form of confrontation with the council to ensure that they look at the financial oversight of Anglesey Mining PLC and its subsidiary companies, and where any public money has been used as grants to fund that company.
The Anglesey thing, which again I'll remind people, is on the 19th of this month, which is April the 19th. Where exactly, what buildings are taking place, John? Could you just shout that out for the listeners?
Yeah, it's 19th of April, Amlwch Memorial Hall. I'll have to get the address. Have you got the address there, Gordon?
No, I haven't.
We'll carry on having a chat.
Yeah, you'll catch it. Amlwch, AMLWCH, Memorial Hall on Anglesey.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
There we are. A lot of the listeners will be aware, but just for other people to understand as well, that this whole thing has been propped up. Everything that you thought that there's been, every contract you've ever entered, anything you've ever bought has been funded by your signature. There is no, the currency is non-existent in the UK. I mean, even your mortgage, what essentially happens is you create a promise to pay, and the bank sell it within 6 months.
Yeah, securitisation, that is it.
Yeah, I mean, so it goes from the financial, from the banks, are mainly the main ones here, and what we are naming is the people who help perpetrate this and hide this fraud away from the people who primarily have been turned into debt slaves and therefore have no time to look at this stuff, let alone analyse it and put it together. I mean, it's the last thing some people want to talk about because they're struggling so much being in this debt slave system. Some people on sanctions that we've touched upon, other people on nothing at all and relying on food banks. I mean, it is difficult for people to understand and to do the research in order for them to accept what we are presenting to you this evening. But we urge you again to come along to Anglesey. If you can't make it, follow up the names that we've mentioned and see for yourself, because it's undeniable, lads, isn't it?
Undeniable. If you were to be £200 in debt, running in the red with your credit card every month for 6 months, the bank manager would call you in and they'd cut up your credit cards, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Now, if you're a public listed company with public shareholders, hundreds of thousands of public shareholders, with billions of floated shares, and you lose in 1 year £31 million from your public listed company, surely there should be a due diligence through the trading standards to say, hey, listen, boyo, I want you to come in here and explain how a public listed company with public shareholders manages to lose £31 million and you haven't lifted a teaspoon to dig anything out of that mine. Yeah. So why are you calling yourself a mining company? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where the Anglesey County Council are complicit in trying to cover this up, because they want it to go away. They want to hide and run away and absolve themselves of any responsibility to the people of Anglesey, to say, listen, no, we've never funded this company. Well, they'd be liars, because in their annual reports it says grants made to Anglesey County Council. And that's why I want them to turn up, and the invite will go out, don't worry. And it's on a Sunday, so they can't give an excuse that they're working, and that's why I picked a Sunday, is that it's a free day, and unless they're going to go to church all day for the full 24 hours, they have a duty of care to attend, to answer some of the allegations that I will make. These are serious allegations. They're serious to the fact where John said we've got food banks all over the country. This is a scandal.
One of them that was ridiculing us on Facebook, Gordon, when we did. He's the big master of the food banks. He's the big manager of the food banks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but he's a Labour man, and he knows that I know that Andrea Davison is going to put a lot of politicians in jail, like Peter Hain.
But he didn't say anything about himself putting food into the food banks. You know.
No, because it's a front to show. It's a front so that you'll get re-elected as a councillor or a politician, so that he can writhe in the grandeur of helping the poverty-stricken people of Anglesey who can't survive without food parcels. This is not the Second World War or the First World War. This is the industrial nation of the world, where it is the financial capital of the world, and yet we still have food banks. There's 30 in Nottingham alone, up where I am, near Derby. 30 food banks. I mean...
Disgusting, yeah?
No, it's more than disgusting.
Yeah.
David Cameron, before you should have any politician taking a seat in the House of Parliament, they should have to live for 6 months on benefits. Nothing more, benefits. And then they would see what it's like for, I would say, 80% of the population, not all his grandees, who are the 100 top people who are sponsoring David Cameron, because when you check the directors' companies that are sponsoring him, you will find that there's companies like Tullow Oil. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and bank directors. These are the people that are bunging money to the Tory party.
Yeah.
And Labour is no different, make no mistake.
No, they're all helping facilitate it. I mean, half these families are traumatised because maybe they've had their house stolen from them fraudulently with a bank. And
well, I'm dealing with somebody at the moment who I've been trying to help. She's both her and her husband are on Facebook regularly, and I met Richie and Lillian, and they're people that lost 140 odd thousand pound and had no home.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to help them with certain bits of information on how they can research themselves and find out the skullduggery that the people that conned them. This is not an isolated incident. They did it to a lot of people.
Absolutely, Gordon. I mean,
you know when you said that you were helping someone out there?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to help this old lady out up in Anglesey and Richardson. You know of her, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Well, they've taken her land off her. They took part of her land from her mother. She was a 93-year-old woman. And the developer took the boundary wall away, and then the local solicitors, the lawyers firm, helped to get this land off this one. They stole the land off her.
Yeah.
Now they've put £20,000 charging order on the mother's property, which is now trying to be sold. But the mother was 93 years of age. She's died now.
Yeah.
And they've also put £45,000 universal notice on her sister's home, who's also died now. So they're trying to strip everything from this one. I put a YouTube video up. It's called Land Theft. I can't even remember what it's called myself. It's Land Theft of an elderly woman. So
Well, this is exactly why I've been trying to help. You know, I'm just one guy, and so are you, John, and so is Craig, and so are you, Darren. But what we can do is, by virtue of your public address on a radio station, is make other people aware that this sort of thing is going on. And we can't sit back. We've got our children to think about and our grandchildren.
well,
And that's not the world I want my grandkids to grow up in.
absolutely. And again, I'll point out listeners to our Facebook page, which is the Common Law Court of Wales, and on there you'll find a hell of a lot of documents which will help protect you from these bailiffs and banks and things like that. I mean, this is going on everywhere. I don't know if you guys, I'll give a shout out. It's a fantastic site, and all the documents that we host on our Facebook page have come from the boys out of Get Out of Debt Free, Matt Salon, and people there who have helped us greatly, and are doing great work in the field, along with the likes of Guy Taylor. And I don't know if you may have heard about the plight that Tom Crawford, where they tried to steal his home, and 500 people or maybe more turned up in order to help protect that man. But we need that on a nationwide thing. I mean, Tom's case there, it certainly highlights exactly the fraud that I struggle for words to describe these people, but
Yeah, we're not beyond the 9 o'clock threshold at the moment.
not quite. But yeah,
No, I know what you mean.
yes, I mean,
with cancer as well, Darren, didn't you?
well, yes, I mean, it's not so much that. I mean, the point is that he's been thrown out of his home, or at least they're trying to steal his home. But people without the network and the safety net that Tom and the likes of people who were able to access information in which to protect themselves. We do local meetings here in Port Talbot every other Tuesday, and we have new people coming along. The first couple of weeks they don't say a lot, but eventually when they're comfortable they tell us that about their problems, and it's the same stories, guys. Fraudulent debt through whether that be water rate company or TV licensing, or some loan they had with Wonga, who were trying to nick their house now because they borrowed 250 quid. I mean,
Now escalates to about 14,000.
Yeah.
Because nobody checks. I just want to break in there, Darren. Is nobody checks where the Wonga people get the money from. Do you understand?
yes,
So when you look at the board of directors of Wonga, and you do a backtrack on those directors and what other companies that you've got, you'll get a better idea when I'm talking about £1 billion organised crime that then cleans that money
yeah.
and makes money on the stolen money.
That's right, and I mean, it's a fiat currency, which so basically you've got these private banks printing interest-free money, lending it to our government at interest, and I mean, your signature then will create anything else you want, whether that be a loan off Wonga, say for 250 quid. What you've created is a promise to pay, which is every fiat currency is a promissory note. But where they had the assets of gold and silver to back it, not so many years ago, I remember, at least my father he was able to exchange his note for solid silver.
Yeah.
But,
that's right.
But
100%.
But with the fractional reserve banking and the Ponzi scheme which is turned into, there is simply not enough assets to balance the books. So they've had to create a fiat currency. It's not the first time in history that fiat currencies have been created in order to keep a fraudulent-based system afloat, and every single time they fail. Every single time. Fiat currencies can't last. And they've printed more money the last 2 years than the previous 200 years of commerce put together. So that should give you a little indication of how far down the road this scheme is. And I mean, when you're talking about taking a loan out with Wonga or Barclays or HSB or anyone, when you sign, that's what creates the funds. You create, in essence, a promissory note. It's not real money. Currency and money are two different things, and it's a fraud job. It absolutely is a fraud job. But I mean, back over to you, Gordon.
Well, I'm just saying that on the 19th, what I'll try to lay out to any interested party, I don't care if 10 people turn up. I don't. All I want to do is create an awareness.
Well, there's a big interest, Gordon. There's a big interest from a lot of people.
I want to create an awareness of how you can steal £1 billion and nobody gives a shite.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that those people who pay a little bit of attention can stand up and understand to their county council to explain to them how you can have a company that's run for 31 years, that have never done anything. They've never provided £1 of income tax, to the revenue generated for the assets of Anglesey County Council, and yet have been funded by way of personal grants to a company. And so there is a due diligence and accountability to individuals who can be identified by way of who gave the loan and who is signing for those companies to be protected. Do you get where I'm coming from there?
Yeah.
Is that there will be a trail, there'll be a paper trail, and those are the people that should be brought before an inquiry by the people of Anglesey to give explanation to that, and then to look deeper into the more horrifying fact is, what about if that is a nuclear waste repository? Now, because I've done shaft exams on vertical shafts up to 1,000 metres and 2,600 metres, I'm quite well versed in how to do a proper shaft exam. Now, if anybody like John, who has taken a video camera and done a fantastic job and overseen the headgear and the winding engine, which is in a big shed, which has still got cementation mining stamped on it, which shows how useless they are at trying to cover things up, is their bravado has exceeded their intelligence. But when you look at the physical condition of the headgear, it would have to be stripped down, acid treated, rebuilt up, re-welded, and so because the shaft theoretically is flooded to the top, and without a full exam you could not do anything other than assume it is flooded, there comes a dewatering process which may involve heavy metals, because it's a copper, zinc, tin, everything. These metals are suspended in animation in the water. That where they're going to pump that water, it's going to contaminate the ground levels. You're not talking about a little puddle. You're talking a 300-metre shaft, then with 1,000 metres of offshoot gallery, according to the so-called plans of the mine. So where are they going to dewater that, and what's in that water?
Well, this is where the people have to, through awareness, take take back the principles in law which are there for them, which I'll just outline, which is basically when a government or your local representatives are no longer representing the wishes and the views of the people.
That's right.
Then there are mechanisms within law that the people can address these issues themselves. That they're able to set up grand juries and then common law courts. Now, these laws are there. Now, they're hidden from the people, as a lot of things are hidden from the people. But this is the basis on which the Common Law Court of Wales was set up. And it's quite simple, really. And it's when a government or those representing the wishes of the people no longer do so, then there's mechanisms in law to put them to book. And they are terrified of this. And, I mean...
Well, this is where you're going to come in invaluable to us in Anglesey.
Yeah.
Is we need also expertise from other areas to be able to bring together a group of people who can then bring forward any sort of question into the council to see, how deep this corruption lies and to what level high up in the council. That's where we need to look at. We need to look at who is protecting these people.
We can actually try these people on the evidence you've got, Gordon.
100%. I believe that. 100%.
In their absence, I mean, they do it to people up and down the land in order to steal their homes and facilitate the fraud every day of the week. And there's mechanisms there. The accused will be summoned to a common law court or that of the people. If he doesn't choose to turn up, then he could find himself being tried in his absence.
Well, this is what happened to Andrea Davison. Although she was convicted on 26 or 27 charges of fraud, what the police have not done and taken account of with the evidence that I gave them is that she's probably got another 500 cases to answer for.
Yeah.
And her links to the politicians, which are direct.
This is where we can give the good people in the police. I mean, as you guys are well aware, I mean, there's only a few of these people in high places that are pulling and directing the things, the likes of Peter Hain and this, that and the other. But when a grand jury is set up in a common law court and a jury has given a verdict, then that verdict is then able to be given to the police, and they are duty bound by law to enforce that. If they fail to enforce it, then the people themselves are duty bound to do so. So it forces them, it gives the good police and the good people within the so-called perceived authority a real tool in which to act.
Exactly. Now, I sent you today, it was posted first class post, so it'll probably get there Saturday.
Yeah.
I have posted you an A4 size white envelope with about 30 pages in it. I want you to use that to the best of your ability for the people of Wales to confront Peter Hain and to, because of the seriousness of the allegations contained in there, and I've included a Freedom of Information request that I made to the Derbyshire Police, which outlines their failure to comply to the limitations of a proceeds of crime order, which then puts the police on a very sticky wicket when it came to removing certain information and material from Andrea Davison's property when they raided it. And those documents are of extreme national interest and directly in the public interest. That those, if there is quite true, what was put there as being removed by the Derby police, then the Derby police have acted on behalf of a political party to remove material, documents, which may otherwise implicate senior politicians. And so, I've included that FOI request, which is in the documents that I've sent to you today.
I appreciate that, Gordon, and I will...
It's a pleasure.
I will use that to the best of my ability, and...
I know you do. And what I need you to understand is that when you receive that package, I want you to contact me as soon as possible.
Yes.
And I will go through the stages which you won't understand with certain pages of documents. They are part of a 349-page court document, which was one of about 10, that I compiled in our
breaking
civil
up here, I
case.
can't hear.
Pardon?
Yeah, sorry, I think John's might come on now. Are you still with us, John?
Yeah, it's all breaking up, I can't hear much, no.
Okay.
Well, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I can hear you too, Gordon, and I can hear you also, John. Hey, well, it'll just continue, and hopefully John's signal will come back to us, Gordon.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's all broke up.
yeah. Well, we can hear you fine.
Carry on, Gordon.
Yeah. Well, some of the pages of the documents, obviously they're not crystal clear because they're copies of. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But you can read exactly what is put there, and I've just done a rough, hard introduction to what you must ask that piece of right honourable gentleman.
Indeed.
Where you will have him with his back against the wall. Now, under what was in that some of the documents, obviously I couldn't send a complete file because I say it was about 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
But there is enough oversight within those documents to confront him that unless he does so, you can take that information and hand them to the police that he should be investigated. Because the heading on the one document is missing nuclear warhead.
Indeed.
And that in itself warrants any sort of investigation, not just by our intelligence services, but by the highest law in the land.
Well, exactly, and I mean, I've I looked at the Andrea Davison has done from abroad, that she's definitely been protected, and it's clear by whom. It's
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, just for the listeners who may have missed the last broadcast, this Andrea Davison was kind of a cannabis cultivator on a huge level in her hometown, where she was picked up by special services and used to facilitate all manner of fraud. Now, Gordon's work has brought this enterprise to an end. Now, she's had to do a runner, she's skipped town. But her cover story is that she's alleging that she was an ex-Secret Service, and she was involved in the sex abuse inquiry in North Wales, weapons in Iraq. It all sounds outlandish and, you know, very James Bondish. But the bottom line is, she was just a front, and Gordon's has exposed this, and what it shows is there is a battle within the political and corporate system at the moment, because it is imploding on itself. And this woman is giving interviews to different outlets, and
Well, she, unfortunately for the general public, she is now focusing on paedophilia within the ranks of Westminster. High-profile people. Forget Jimmy Savile.
Yeah.
He was just an organizer for a higher echelon of paedophiles, but he enjoyed his vile trade as he went along. But he was a procurer for other people. And I believe that there are many others to come out of the woodwork of very high ranks. But she claimed that she was working for a military side intelligence service that were operating in Iraq, and she was flying out of RAF Valley. Now, I know Valley because I was stationed at RAF Brodie, and I've seen some of her paperwork, which doesn't strike me as being overly involved with military intelligence. She's got a photograph of her in her early days with a blue cloth badge with a white stag's head with 15 in numericals, which 50, that's 15 group, and it's the PSYOPs unit of the Territorial Army. And I believe that she's tried to use this as a leverage tool when she's sort of given an overguise of that she was working with the intelligence services.
Well,
is that she is a compulsive liar. I've got more information on her background because of her next door neighbour, who John knows about, and who I tried to protect as best as I could, given her frail circumstances. I tried to contact the police to go and check on her, and the what do they call it, the military social services, I got them to check on her as well. However, this lady went through a really rough time with Andrea Davison. She lost her husband who lost his legs, and this Andrea Davison is a real evil piece of stuff.
Isn't it not correct that when the police came to nab this woman, she had had prior knowledge to it, and she gave these documents to Peter Hain? Now, some of which, all I've been privy to, he hid in his safe. Is
Yeah,
that
well, in the letter, which is addressed from Andrea Davison
Yeah,
to Peter Hain,
yeah,
it's warning him that on the 13th of the 1st, 2010, her property was raided under the guise that she provided some sort of material for a guy called Robin Jacob.
yeah,
And she was warning Peter Hain that when she, Andrea Davison, and Pete Sawyer, an investigative journalist, visited Peter Hain at his surgery, and he was there present with his researcher, Isabel, and Peter Hain asked for documents to be put in his safe. Now, the cover letter that I've sent you, which is a copy of the one and one of about 30 documents that I put in a court file,
yeah,
so it's sealed and it's locked down as affidavit evidence in a legal civil case, is that it explains to Peter Hain that he asked for certain documents which he placed in his safe. Now, given the context of missing nuclear warhead,
Yeah.
I would say that it's paramount that Mr. Hain, Right Honourable Peter Hain, is asked to explain what those documents were. They are in the public interest. And
absolutely.
if they concern missing nuclear warheads, that is a paramount national interest.
Well, yes, a national security issue, if not a world security issue.
Exactly. Now, what if? Now, I've got the background on some of the information, because her lodger and the person that was living at her address when the police raided, although he wasn't in the premises, was a guy called David William Mills, and he was the systems engineer for Magnox North, which then brings in that he was also working for Cementation Mining when that Morris shaft was sunk. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Absolutely.
On a cross-reference?
Yes, absolutely.
And Andrea Davison was running a club in Bangor called Club Odessa, and its alternative name was Club Russia, because what they were doing was using Russian prostitutes and Thai ladies and Thai men, I might add, to entertain dignitaries in Bangor and police officers, which would then give them a sort of protective screen around their criminality that they were operating.
Yeah, so it's basically blackmail and whatnot.
That's right, because that's what they call them, honey trap clubs.
And when if you look at these, when I say if anyone goes to Anglesey and gets a chance to have a look at these documents, then you'll understand that although Andrea Davison was making false documents in order to procure information in regards to the child sex paedophile rings in North Wales, and I believe she was doing that in order to influence and use for blackmail, then you can see that there's an absolute link there. Gordon, she is being protected. At the same time, she's up to her neck in it.
Well, when she fled the country before the trial started in the Mould Crown Court on the 4th of July 2012, she had obviously been pre-warned that she was going to go to jail for a long time, because she admitted in the statements that I have, which is included in the Fraud Group North case synopsis used in her prosecution, which I applied for legally under Freedom of Information Act, is that the only person that gave evidence in her defence was a guy called Kevin James Cahill. And Kevin James Cahill was the intelligence advisor for Lord Paddy Ashdown. I think he's a Lib Dem, isn't he? And Gordon Brown, ex-Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And he is currently the intelligence advisor for Lord Laird Artigovan. So you've got a man who was highly involved with the Labour sort of frontage at the highest levels of the powers of the corridors of power in Westminster, coming to Mould Crown Court to give defence evidence to a person he knows personally, who was convicted of running organised crime, fraud, theft and money laundering.
Well, this is it. I mean, so anyone thinking, you know, oh well, if it goes that way, I mean, the chances of us nailing these guys through legitimate means, because they hold the highest keys within the power structure. I mean, you've just got to look at the inquiries with the paedophilia networks to see that these people are being protected from the top. This is where evidence like this comes crucial, when the people do actually realise that they can come together, form common law courts, which then give the honest people within power the keys to go and round these bastards up.
Exactly. And I've approached people like, who I thought was a good Welshman, and sorry, not a good Welshman, but a mining stock from, they call him a few names in Parliament, Dennis Skinner.
Yeah.
Now he's a miner, and I thought because he was Labour that he's often stood up and castigated his own party for being scumbags, that he would have taken this information and used it. But obviously, when you're talking about locking up your own Prime Minister and Prime Ministers and senior politicians, then obviously he sort of fell back on his own sword.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Such as corruption.
Yeah. And I mean, they know any one of these subjects that we've raised this evening could bring down Parliament itself, and therefore the structure, which is a debt slave system that's been imposed upon the people without their consent, and has actually stripped everything the public have ever worked together to achieve. It would bring it down to a crash into its knees, Gordon, basically.
Yeah. Well, I've just been given a nod. I've got to go outside. There's somebody there to see me. So, can I leave you with John? To finish off.
Of course, Gordon, and thank you again, and we'll catch up soon.
Okay, cheers, and we'll do an update. Just give me a confirmation when you receive that package, and then I'll talk you through it.
I will do, sir.
Thank you, John, in Anglesey.
Okay, Gordon, see you later.
Bore da.
Bore da, iechyd da, twrch di'n bob tro.
Nos da. Cheers, pal.
All right, Gordon.
Right.
Cheers, mate.
Aye.
That was Gordon Bowden, ladies and gentlemen, and again, massive amount of information there for you to follow up. Anyway, we'll just go back to John. Invaluable, John, isn't the knowledge and the work that Gordon have done, and yourself, of course.
It's amazing what he's done, and
it's tangible. It can really be used, and has been used, and I hope the listeners, you know, I hope we've given them an insight.
I'm glad I met him, to be honest with you, you know.
Well,
he's opened a lot of my eyes, he's opened a lot of people's eyes, and you know, the man's doing it for free. He's not even getting paid for it. Do you know what I mean, Darren?
Well, it's duty, isn't it?
It's duty of care, and that's what he's doing.
And I mean, truth doesn't cost anything, John, or at least it shouldn't.
No, of course it doesn't.
And that's it. And you know, come the 19th, again the 19th of April, in Anglesey, together with John, Craig was supposed to be with us this evening.
Is Craig still with us? Because he was very passionate himself.
He got knocked off all the time. We tried to get him back in throughout the show, but we couldn't get him back on. He must have had a terrible connection there. But I'm sure we'll try and get Craig himself back on again. But yes, I mean, the Anglesey issue is a focal point for the people of Wales to see what's going on there, and that will then give them a small piece of what the bigger picture looks like, because this is the modus operandi of these people up and down the country and across the Western banking system, John, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all over the world, isn't it, Darren? You know,
it is.
When it comes to it's in your back garden, and you know, the truth hits home. But what I actually did do as well, Darren, was, you know, I was helping Gordon to look into it on my end here, because I'm only 5 miles away from the mine.
Yes.
And you know, I got in touch with ex-workers that worked there years ago in 1991, sinking the shaft.
Yeah.
And these lads, the one lad that I was talking to, his wages were £250 to £300 per week. Right? It was good money then.
Oh, aye.
But the shifts they were charging were £310 per shift. So you can imagine the money that was involved there, and they were only getting £250, £300 a week. And they were being paid £310 a shift.
Amazing.
So, you know, everybody's being conned by these people.
Yeah. Yeah, conned almost seems too light of a word. It's treason, John. This is treason. I mean, to go behind the people's back, to make as much money off the people's back as you can, and then laugh. Basically, you know, let's put the nuclear waste down there and say nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is treason, and these people will be brought to book. Well, they're going to be, because we got the goods on them. It's undeniable. The paper trail is there. Once the awareness, which again on the 19th, you're going to be recording it, John, and putting it out. Obviously, for those that cannot make it. And,
yes, I'll have a recorder up there. I'll be recording it.
And we shall. We shall take it from there, because again, I stress that if the police don't do anything about it, or the authorities think they can, not the authorities, sorry, the people who hide behind the system within the authority think they're safe, they are not safe at all, because the mechanisms are there for the people to enforce grand juries and common law judgments come down on, and if they do, the evidence that we got on these people, then the police will be absolutely forced to act, and they'll be duty bound to do so.
Yeah, well, Gordon has contacted everybody, the police, Parliament, everybody.
Yeah.
And up here, Darren, I contacted all the... Gordon's done it as well, but I wanted to do it for my own self.
Yeah.
So I contacted the council leader, Young Williams, by email, firstly. Yeah. And I sent an email and I asked him, listen, there's reason to believe that there's nuclear waste buried at Paris Mountain in Amlwch, and I think it calls for an investigation.
Yeah.
I think it was 3 minutes he sent an email back in a reply, and in his email, this is Ian Williams, the council leader. His reply was, I cannot see any evidence of nuclear waste in Paris Mountain. Goodbye. Now this is in an email, and this is what I put in a reply to him. I said, I cannot see evidence of nuclear waste in Paris Mountain from an email. You know what I mean, Darren?
Absolutely.
So this is what they're doing. They don't want to know, they don't want to talk about it, and they try and get rid of you straight away. So they 100% know something's going on.
Ignore everyone, and this is where awareness comes into it, and what you were doing on Sunday the 19th is absolutely critical, and hats off to you and Craig, John, for unearthing this, not only for the people of Anglesey, but for the whole people of Wales, and of course the UK, because what's been highlighted here is the structure in which these people get away with it and wash it up and hide it. It's laid bare for everyone to see.
Exactly, Darren, exactly. But it will get exposure here.
We'll push this as well.
There's a lot of interest, and even now, because I've been posting on Facebook, even now you see people, you know, they're beginning to wake up.
Yeah. They're
beginning to post things they would never do before.
Indeed. Well, I'll get this up on the Common Law Court of Wales Facebook page, on the YouTube. Yeah, we've got 10 days to push it, and for those who can't make it in Anglesey, John and Craig will be videoing the event, and that'll be going out on the various sites also, John, yeah?
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
Gone into exposing this corruption.
Yeah.
There we are, John. I think that's more or less a wrap, my friend.
Right, brilliant. Thank you for having us, Darren.
It's an honour and privilege. I mean, this work needs to be done, and let's get on with it, innit?
Yeah, fantastic. So we'll see you there, Darren, yeah?
I shall be there on the 19th, sir, and maybe we'll share a beer.
Yeah, or a coffee, chocolate biscuit.
Yeah, why not? Sunday afternoon after all.